Hi, everyone. I'm Dan Albers, and welcome to Dingo and Coach on our Positive Energy episode. We talk positive stories about positive people. And Steve, when we came up with this idea to do this positive energy, we envisioned guests like we have here today, and getting to talk with people that truly have inspiring stories to share. And a guy that we know very well. He's in the New Richmond leading scorer. He's in the Hall of Fame. You know, he coaches with you. I've known Doug for a long time too as well. So it's going to be awesome to hear his story. I think some people out here that are listening right now might know something about this story and what's going on, but it's just going to be great to catch up. I think this is exactly the type of story that we want on this positive energy episodes.
Well, sometimes I complain that our podcasts are too long. I want this one to be long.
Absolutely.
Because I really want this to get into the details, because I got to witness a lot of what Doug went through. I can't say enough about this guy, not just because he's sitting here and he's my assistant coach, but just an inspiration to a lot of people, his family, to the players we coach, to everybody that's out there that's going to hear this. And this is the reason why we do this, because you talk about the ultimate fighter, and this is the guy right here, and I can't wait to get into this.
Yeah, and these stories, and it's the funny thing. I was thinking about this today when I was trying to get this script together, and it's like you always remember things in history that happen and stuff. And I remember, when we were told and all that was happening, it was just like a gut punch, man. It was like, holy crap, you know. So, but
well, the other thing, Danny, is that it's what's crazy is, and you're going to get into the questions about how we know each other and like that, but it's almost like we've known each other all of our life.
Yeah, no kidding.
It's almost scary.
Yeah, we'll get to that a little bit later. But joining us, as always, we've said before, is our Hall of Famer, Richmond Hall of Fame and cancer survivor. It's Doug Ass. Doug, thanks for joining us, buddy.
Thanks, guys. Happy to be here.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. So let's first start off by we were talking about a little bit before, but the connection that we have, and it's kind of how it's really similar. It's kind of scary how we're all three pretty much almost the same, but I guess I'm the big fat one. You guys he's the medium one, and you're the medium one too. I'm the you got a small, medium, large. I guess I'm the fat one. I guess, but just talk a little bit about how we all kind of got connected and intertwined.
Where do we start? What can I say on the podcast? No, it kind of started. Well, Steve and I used to play against each other in basketball at the New Richmond Alumni League and stuff, and we used to battle each other. And he was scrappy and wanted to punch you instead of score on you. So, but that's kind of how I knew Steve at the beginning, and then started playing softball with my brother and with Moose, of course. And Moose, he's like, "Hey, you ever thought about coaching?" I'm like, "Well, yeah. I mean, I've coached some, younger, pee-wees and stuff like that." And he's like, "Well, I got a friend who, he's an assistant coach out at Marymount." I'm like, "Okay, who is it?" He goes, "Steve Ellis." I'm like, "I don't know if I know him." And then he's like, "Well, just go down to Marymount, walk in and, just talk to him." I'm like, "Okay." So I walk in. I'm like, "Oh, yeah, I know this cat," So, and then we kind of hit it off from there. But then getting back to the softball years, I mean, you and I played together like with Adis's and Storm and Norman. And you remember
played either against you or with you. And then, real quick on a funny story, it just popped in my head. I crack up about this. Dave Woolprice, who played on our team, I remember sitting in a tournament, and he taps me, he goes, "Look at that." He goes, "He's got the greatest posture I've ever seen in my life." You were sitting like straight up and just like, and I'm like, "Are you kidding me right now?"
But it just my back was probably hurting or something.
It's just making his mom proud.
But the softball days were definitely fun, and against, obviously, our brothers played together too, so it just made it fun whenever we were playing. It seemed like we were at the same spot all the time. It was kind of cool to get us all together, and it's been, I think, a friendship ever since that.
100%.
Yeah. So,
well, I want to get into this, Doug, because having you come on as a coach, and just real quick, Danny, just to when I got into being a head coach, one of the things I wanted to do was I always just wanted to have one voice talking to me, and I couldn't have asked for a better person than Doug. All these years that he's a much better person than me and much better coach than I am. I mean, he has kept me so much more under control.
I've witnessed it
100 times. But anyway, so it's been such a fun time. But the reason why we're here is because we want to talk about what Doug has gone through. And I want to go back because you had developed cancer, unfortunately, before we started coaching.
Right.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, so walk us back to that, when all that started and how you found out and where you were.
So I think it was around 2006, 2007. I was lifting weights, always working out, and I was taking a shower one day and, washing my hair. I had super short hair back in the day, kind of like you guys.
Mine's not by choice.
Right. So I felt a little bump on the top of my head. I just thought maybe it was an ingrown hair or something. And then it just never went away, and it was at the very top, and I couldn't see it. So I went to my wife, Carrie, and just said, "Hey, what is this?"
Yeah.
I couldn't see it. And she's like, "I don't know, but it's black." And I'm like, okay. So the bulldog that my wife is throughout this whole process, she reached out to a dermatologist on 5 Mile and said, "Hey, we needs to be seen." So I went in, and she gave me some crazy news. She looked at it right away before any biopsy or anything, and she said, "You're in trouble." And I said, "Huh?
Yeah.
What do you mean I'm in trouble?"
Yeah.
So she had said that, you need to seriously think about your future. And this is the first visit I ever saw the lady.
And they hadn't even done a biopsy.
No, that's how it looked. That's how bad it looked.
Okay.
And she said to me, she goes, "You need to," I said, "Do I need to worry, do I have to go through chemo and all that stuff?"
Yeah.
And she goes, "You need to think about your life and whether you're going to live or not." That's how impactful it looked.
Wow.
So it was.
How big was it? Pretty big, or was it?
Yeah, at the beginning, I mean, it was like a dime size.
Dime.
Yeah, but it had raised, so it was melanoma cancer. So it had raised a little bit off the skin, and that's what I was feeling because it had gone through all the layers of my skin. It had nowhere else to go, so it went up, and that's where I could feel it. So I had no idea. So I go home, and Carrie's like, "Okay, how'd it go?" And I'm like, "Well, you ain't gonna believe what I'm gonna tell you."
Yeah.
And she just broke down. She, literally, physically broke down. It was tough, but I'm like, okay, well, what do I got to do? What's next step?
So what year was that then? So you said it was before 2007.
I think it was 2007.
Yeah, it was right before we started coaching. So what took place at that point?
Well, I went in. They went in and had surgery. They removed the spot. Again, it was a dime, but they probably took out like a $50 size on the top of my head on my scalp.
Okay.
And removed it. It was gone for, I kind of lose track on time, but maybe 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
And then, kind of crazy, I go on a golf outing every year, and I hit my head on the golf cart, and it bumped up, and I'm like, man, that hurt. Same spot, right? And so I got home, and next thing I know, I find out is the bump never went away. I'm like, well, shit, maybe I had a bump to begin with.
Right.
Yeah.
Went back to the doctor, and they said, well, cancer's back, melanoma's back in the same spot.
Same spot. That's what I was going to ask you.
Same spot, and then they said, well, we need to investigate. So they did more tests and scans and found that it had metastasized and spread into my lungs. So I had. So when it metastasized, it goes to a stage 4. At that point, you're like,
I'm one of those guys that don't understand the differences between, I guess, you always hear someone stage 1, stage 2. So is 4 obviously the worst? And
it is.
Is there anything worse than the 4, or is it just pretty much 4? And that's
4 is when so there's 4 or 5 stages here. 0, it's just nothing's there, but stage 1, there's a little.
Right.
But when it gets to stage 4, that means
it's pretty serious.
That means it is spread. It's metastasized across, somewhere within your body, some organs, things like that. And for me, it was in the lungs.
And there's no rhyme or reason for that?
No. But, I've talked to a lot of people. I've been to a lot of doctors and nurses, and the gist of it is, from what I've heard, is it's genetic, even though it's hard to prove that. My grandfather on my dad or my mom's side, he died of melanoma.
Really?
He had it on his back, and it went in, I believe, into his lungs too. So, I'm pretty sure it's genetic, but they have a hard time just proving that outright.
Yeah.
So
for the second round, so now you got the spot on your head, and then went into your lungs. So what took place? Was there surgery, obviously, and then what was the post?
Yeah, so this was a tough one. So I had another surgery to remove the spot on my top of my head. Well, this time it wasn't a quarter size. It was maybe like the size of this, the top of that.
Yeah.
And I had staples and, stitches, it was crazy. But they did skin grafts and things like that from my legs. So I had, injuries on my legs, injury on my head.
Right.
Still cancer in my lungs and stuff. So I was beat up pretty good at that point.
And this is like 2010?
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Okay.
Yeah. And then, so after that, then they're like, well, we got to make sure we get all of it right on top of your head.
Yeah.
So I would leave downtown. I was working full-time downtown. And I would drive up to Christ Hospital, and they did 40 straight days of intense radiation on the top of my head to try to kill as much as they possibly can. It was crazy. I would be, it would take 20 minutes just to prep me for it, and I would only be under the laser for like 6 seconds. That's how strong it was. Yeah, but they had me do it, for 40 days.
Yeah.
So it didn't destroy me. It didn't destroy my skin graft on the top of my head. So,
yeah. So tell everybody, just real quick on that, how that is physically, how you feel after you're done with that, like after you do like a radio, just one, but then continually do more, it just kicks your butt.
Yeah, I talked to a lot of people today. And we can get into that a little bit later, but I'm talking to a lady now, she's going through cancer right now, lung cancer, and so I try to talk to her as much as I can, but about it and what to expect and what to do and those types of things. But it just kind of drains you over time, the radiation. Now, my situation's a lot different than most people that go through cancer. Most people that go through cancer, they're diagnosed, they start chemo, they're doing chemo, every other week, some do radiation, all these kinds of things, right? So over time, it really wears them down. Well, mine's a little different because I didn't go through all that. What I went through was my oncologist, Dr. Phil Lemming, and Jill Hunt, at the time at Christ Hospital. They were my oncologists, and they basically saved my life. Dr. Lemming was incredible. If anyone gets a chance to see him, needs to see him, please do.
Yep.
I got stories on him, but he's fantastic.
Yep.
But anyway, he got me into a clinical trial at the National Institute of Health, the NIH, down in Bethesda, Maryland. So he got me into that, or at least he got me down there. And I had to audition for it. They tested me up, down, all around, physically, mentally. I had to do tests just to pass to see if I could even qualify for the trial that I actually got into.
What's the determining factor of if they're doing all these tests, does it have to be bad? You know what I mean? I guess what is the...
So Dr. Lemming decided that I qualified to go down there, but the trial was very, very difficult. And so many people, they don't want to have a weak person down there that's not strong mentally or physically.
Right.
So at my age, I was mid to late 30s. I'm strong, I'm healthy, all that kind of stuff. So, but they had me go through all these mental tests too, and teeth tests, everything.
Really?
And so, I passed all that and I got accepted to it. And
wow.
So this is right after the second episode, or whatever you want to call it.
That is the second episode.
Okay,
really.
And you're still dealing with the lung part, is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's why Dr. Lemming had me, try to get down there.
Okay, and I'm going to say this a couple times, and all the while he is still working, still doing family functions, and making every single practice and game, and helping me coach.
I was going to talk about that too.
It's going to give you more when we get into the next phase here.
Yeah. So let's talk about that whole, the treatment and everything that you did. the trial and everything, and the therapy, and how intense was it, and how, break it down, because I think I saw in here. I was going to get to my next question, but we'll go ahead and just tell me how grueling that trial was for you.
Yeah. So
explain what the NIH is first.
Yeah, the National Institute of Health, which probably a lot of people have heard of, especially recently with the whole COVID and all that kind of fun stuff.
Right.
But yeah, so it is the government's agency on cancer research, basically. So they do a lot of studies, a lot of trials, try this, try that,
That's where the presidents go.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's a lot of like kings from other countries and stuff. They wouldn't tell me who, but many popular people go there, to get treated, but it's obviously quiet.
Sure.
About it. So it was there, but it's a gated community. Like you have to
Clearance
show your badge. I mean, Steve knows. He came down to visit me along with a couple other buddies of mine. So it's like a fortress to get in and out of that place.
Yeah, you pull in, and it's not like going through a metal detector. They actually will go through your entire car.
Really?
I mean, they had the dogs, they had the mirrors
underneath that
like
car.
Like we were at the border, and they were everything on us, and I mean, all the whole symptoms are checking temperatures, which it's all for the safety.
Right.
I mean, we all want to make sure we're not going to do anything negative, but I mean, it is it's not your normal hospital, is what I'm trying to get at. And if there was one place in the world that Doug needed to be at that time, it was this place.
This is going to just, like we've talked about on all of our podcasts about, things that are not as, as big as this, but like why our parents did what they did, and just how we all met and all that stuff. Sure. And it's just like, this is another example of something coming together where you got this doctor, and what, because of that, and it just really is like, kind of hits me now that you think about it, that, if it wasn't for this doctor to get you to go where you're at, who knows?
Yeah, well, before you go on about the NIH, Doug, tell us, how did you get in touch with Dr. Lemming?
I was referred to Dr. Lemming. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because he is
the best.
Yeah, he's the most well-known melanoma oncologist in the region. Wow. And I believe he used to work at the NIH, so he had ties to the NIH.
Okay.
And then, when I came around the second time, and he's like, okay, let's see if we can get you down there.
Yeah.
So
that's just
okay. So walk us through. You go there, and you're relatively, set everything to the cancer side. You're relatively healthy.
Oh yeah.
And you go in there, and how long were you there? What was the process like? And then I want to speak about when I came up there.
Okay. Yeah. So just real quick, I've got to give a shout out to Dr. Steven Rosenberg. So he's like this incredibly famous pioneer of immunotherapy in the world.
Okay.
I mean, if you look him up, it's absolutely insane that I was under his trial. I mean, he's gotten so many awards. It's incredible. So
wow.
Anyway, but he would come into my room from time to time, check up on me and stuff. So, but yeah, so in IH, so basically there were 5 people that were in my study, and they said, not all you guys are going to make it through this. And that's how hard it was.
Wow.
And I'm like, okay. But honestly, inside, I'm thinking, let's go. Let's see what you got.
Yep.
That was how I approached it.
I'm like, no doubt about that.
Let's go. Yeah. So went through it. So I was there about a month. Mom and Dad were there a lot. You came, Travis, Vern. And obviously my wife had a lot of support there. So it was about a month, and there's 2 avenues to take in this trial. One was you got chemo, or the other one was you got chemo and radiation, full body radiation. So, okay. So they tested everyone. Well, I'm the lucky one, and I got full body radiation and chemo.
Okay.
Well, whoever gets that trial had the best chances of survival. I'm like, all right, good. Here we go. Yeah. So the first few days, they start administering you chemo right away.
Okay.
And, so you guys are probably thinking, what's that feel like? Well, it didn't feel like anything. Just, an injection, you can't tell.
Right.
So normally people lose their hair, their eyebrows, and all that kind of stuff, over time. I lost all my hair in a day and a half.
Dang.
Is that right?
That's how.
It was that aggressive.
It was that, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So it was chemo for 2 to 3 days straight. And then on that 3rd to 4th or 5th day, there was a crossover day there where I did chemo and full body radiation. That was tough. I mean, that was puke bucket tough.
Right.
This is when it starts kicking in, it starts kicking your butt.
Yeah. I remember my dad wheelchaired me down, to another radiation.
Right.
With a bucket and stuff. It was just, and I know my wife's like, don't tell everything, everyone doing hair. But I think people need to hear it.
I do too.
Yeah.
I really do. And, because it's a struggle, it's a grind, but there's a path out.
Exactly.
There's a path out. So anyway, did that whole thing, got through that. I had lost about 35 pounds. So lost all my hair, it was just, a skeleton of myself at that time. So what they do is, and this is how the trial worked, which is pretty phenomenal, is they went to the tumors, and the white blood cells that are trying to attack it and kill it. Those are the strongest, right? Those are the ones that's going to kick ass all day long on it and never stop. So what they did, they grabbed a whole bunch of them, and they put them in the lab and incubated them into the billions.
Oh, wow.
And then they used the chemo and the radiation to drop my immune system, so I had none.
Yeah.
None. I had no immune system. And then what they do is then they put those white blood cells back in your body and have it attack and destroy whatever's in its way. Luckiest part for me was when it went back in, they said the first organs that it reaches is the lungs.
Wow.
Which is where you needed.
Which is where I needed to be. Yeah.
Okay.
And so just thinking about that, and one of the questions I kind of wanted to throw off of that was, you said you were traveling, what was it, going back and forth there for a while, and then you had to stay for a month. Talk about that part, not only that, but like mentally, man. I mean, mentally, you've got to be like, you're not everybody's there. Your wife and your friends are not there every single moment of every single time. It's doctors and doing all this. And I can't even imagine, like, mentally, it had a wear on you too as well. So talk a little bit about that travel that we were talking about that you mentioned to us.
Yeah, I mean, Steve and I talk about it all the time in playing basketball or coaching basketball. It's being mentally tough.
Right.
And, I don't know how mentally tough I was back then. I'm like, I'm a rah-rah guy, but until you go through something like that, you really don't know. But when you come out the other side, you find out I am mentally tough.
Right.
Yep.
Because to your point, I mean, it was a struggle bus, I'm telling you. Like, I remember when they first sent me home, Carrie had to go back to the kids, and I flew home, and I couldn't get in a wheelchair. I couldn't get out of a wheelchair. So they basically got me to the airport, wheeled me to the airport, wheeled me out, and I got home. And that was just the first trip home. I got home, and they're like, okay, let's see if it works. And, weeks and weeks went by, a couple months, this and that. I can't remember how long it took. Kept going back for scans locally here with Dr. Lemming, and we could tell they were starting to decrease, the tumors. I believe I have 4 tumors at the time, and they started to decrease. We're like, oh my gosh, I think it's working.
Yeah.
So then when I have to go back, but I mean, they could tell me that, but then I had to fly back, which was fantastic because the government did all that for me.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, I could not have done that.
Right.
I mean, I probably went back, airlines back and forth, not knowing your fate, just on a prayer that you're, so it was tough, but at the end of that, when I made my last flight down to Bethesda, the last trip, we drove once or twice too, and that was it. So once I got through it, I felt a little good about it, and then the tumors started to decrease, and then overall finally went away.
Yeah.
But there was one tumor left, and so they didn't know what the heck it was. And so, I mean, they knew it was a tumor, but they didn't know why all the treatments that I went through didn't kill that one. So they needed to do a biopsy, which I'm not going to get totally deep into because it was really rough how they gathered that biopsy. But they found out that it was carcinoma, which was basically like lung cancer. I'm like, all right, let me get this straight. So I had stage 4, which is metastasized melanoma cancer, and I had stage 1 carcinoma. And I know I say stage 4 a lot, but when the doctor tells you that it's growing so fast, if we don't get it out within the next week, you probably aren't going to make it. I call that stage 4.
Right, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, all right. So went in, had another surgery. The tumor had grown so large that they couldn't take the tumor out without taking the upper lobe of my lung out. So they took it all together, all out. Since that surgery, I've been cancer-free. So,
man, holy cow!
How about that?
So that's amazing. I don't know. I'm sitting there thinking, like, my little injuries that I cry and whine about, and I'm sitting there thinking about, I got a little freaking hangnail right now, and I'm whining and crying about it, and I just can't even imagine, like, after you go through all that and sitting around not doing anything, and then your head, what are you thinking? You know what I mean? Like, to me, I run through so much crap through my head, I can't even imagine somebody that has cancer and what's running through your head. Like, you're thinking about everything, family, life, friends, and just what you're going to do. I mean, it just, and I hope people out there listening, listen, I'm one that gets ticked at the simplest things in the world and life and everything, but it's so just not that important, right? When you look at what Doug's gone through,
right?
And I remember being around that and seeing him at the Marymount games, and it just, man, it just killed me. It was hard to watch, and it just. So I just hope everybody out there appreciates that. I'm glad that we're talking about this because I don't know what that's all like. I mean, the only major surgery I ever had was, part of my colon was taken out, and that's a pretty major surgery, but that's
right.
I get it done and I'm done in a couple of days or a week or whatever. You were living this for years, man, and it just. So I just hope people understand that there's more important things in this world and this life than get pissed at a hangnail or something,
or UC football or something,
or a basketball game, or screaming last night. And I'm saying that, and I screamed last night at a basketball game, waking my wife up. So
Well, it worked out though, didn't it?
It did.
Well, I'll tell you, Danny. Going back to when Doug was at the NIH and went up there to see him, I had no expectations or no ideas, what I was going to see or get into. I just wanted to support Doug and go up there and see him, because there's really obviously nothing I can do. Mm-hmm. And when I got there, he'd already been there 2 or 3 weeks at this point, and he was just a shell of himself, and he could barely lift his hand to shake my hand. And but the one thing that I could see, and him and his dad and I had talked about, was you could just see he still had to fight. And it was just incredible. And and to go through all this is, I mean, it's just an inspiration. I can't say enough about it. And on a lighter note, it was much appreciated that he went through this for the most part during the off season of basketball. I don't know if Karen would agree with that, but I mean, on that note, Doug would still show up. Right. There's that saying, showing up, and he would show up, and there were days that he wasn't the normal Doug, right? And he had to sit there with crackers and like almost whisper something to me, right? But he showed up, right? And I knew just being there was not only an inspiration for me, but it was an inspiration for our guys, and there was a point in time where we were playing. Doug had just come back, and he was just struggling just to get into the gym and everything, and we were playing Madeira down at Cintas
I
Center.
remember that.
And we're in the locker room before we go, and it's a big rival game. And I was like, look, you got to have reasons, for us to go down there. You got to have a purpose, and winning for your girlfriend, winning for your mom, winning for your teammates, whatever. And the first person who spoke up was Nick Jones and says, I want to win this for Coach Ass.
I'd have lost it.
Well, I did.
Yeah.
And I looked around, and every single person, they didn't say their mom. They all said for Doug.
Yeah.
And we went down there and played the
Kicked
best.
their ass.
We played the best game that we had played all year.
I remember that. Yeah.
I mean, it was just incredible. But I mean, that just goes to show what a fighter Doug was and still is.
Yeah.
And to come out on the other side shows how much hope that there really is.
Well, and I remember, I'd always get there early because I was doing the book for you guys.
Yeah.
And I'd get there early and I'd sit and wait to go in, and Doug would come in and he was walking slow and,
Sure.
and looked like he said really thin and and I remember talking to him. It was a struggle to even eat a hot dog. It was a struggle to eat something. Like he was trying to eat but he couldn't eat.
Yeah.
Or he
and
would
I
eat
remember
one
that.
bite.
Yeah, one bite and then he'd throw it away, and it was just like, man.
Yeah.
Well, my just funny you say that. My oncologist Jill Hunt, which probably will be watching this at some point, she said, "I want you eating Chipotle every day."
I remember you saying
Remember that?
Yes.
Did you get sick?
And
Did
she's
you do
like,
it?
And she's like, "I want you to keep a list of everything you eat,
Yeah.
and then report on each
I
week."
remember you saying that.
Did you do that?
I was eating everything I possibly could at one point.
Yeah.
But at the beginning, when I first
I remember
came
that.
back,
It was tough.
yeah.
Well,
and
and
I was drinking Boosts and
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ensures and
Yeah.
whatever it took to stay afloat.
Yeah, I mean, just and I think I don't remember when that was. Wasn't at Marymount that when they did a night for Doug too? I just
Yeah.
remember you doing something, and I remember like you did a talk to the crowd, and
Yeah.
that was a cool moment too.
Yeah.
Yeah, we might as well get this out here. So I can't thank the Marymount people and everyone involved enough. I mean, they were incredible people. And you called it out with Nick, and they were all like that. They were super nice, super supportive. And everyone, I mean, you can't get through this by yourself,
Right.
Besides family, of course. But I think at the time it was my oldest daughter Sydney's dance company that did a dance for Doug, and they did it at Marymount, and that's what you're talking about.
Yep.
So big support there, and I had friends that threw a benefit for us at the Anderson Bar and Grill
Yes.
there with Ornella and stuff.
Yep.
So but the Marymount people were fantastic.
Yeah.
They true, and they still are today. Chuck Stewart, he's like, hey, I've got some extra Sky Miles if you need them.
Yeah.
For
man.
carriage,
believe
wants to come down.
Yeah.
Just stuff like that.
That's incredible.
Just
Yeah.
fantastic people.
Well, and here we are. I mean, you can get all the cliches and Rockies stuff like that, but no one took more punches than Doug here.
Yeah.
And to come out on the other side here, I want to move past where we're at, Doug, and to that point. And so for the last how many years, what has taken place where you have to go every so often to get checked, and it's a great thing to go get checked, but how often then you got spread out over the years?
Yeah. Normally they I believe it's like 5 years after the last cancer is showing up that they want you to go back to get CT scans every 6 months, and then after I think it was after 5 years, I got to go once a year. So overall, it was 10 years clean after. So it was just this last Christmas that was my 10 years clean. So, but the entire time, guys, I'm a pincushion.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I'm getting picked on all the time. I have Mohs surgeries, and just it's all about skin. It's crazy. My skin just kind of it's nuts. It's so I have little spots taken off here and there. I go to my dermatologist, Dr. Foad in Montgomery. She's fantastic, and they keep me clean. They've it's not easy. And I still grind to get through all these different appointments and all this, and it's a lot.
Well, and I want to say something too, real quick. I mean, just for guys, we're so I don't know what you want to say, but we're just like, we're sick, we're cool, we'll be okay. We don't get, you know what I mean? Like we don't. Do you know what I'm getting with it? Like
Don't worry about it.
Like you said, I got a bump in my head. I'll be fine.
Don't worry about it.
And the story I want to bring up about that too, Doug, and I don't mean to bring him into this too, but my brother-in-law Brian, kind of similar to yours, had a story like that where he had a bump and he was just kind of like blowing it off, and then someone brought a story and it kind of hit him, and he ended up having cancer too. So it's like, as guys, I think, get that macho crap out. And if you feel even the slightest of something, go get it checked. I mean, what's it going to hurt?
It's funny you say that, because when I went into Dr. Foad, I remember sitting, and this was years ago now, I remember sitting on her table and said, I can't, why is this happening? All this kind of stuff. And she's like, you're a lucky one. I'm like, what do you mean? And this is when I still had it. And she's just kind of treating me. And she's like, most guys come in here when it's too late.
Yeah.
And because they're too macho.
Yeah.
They think, it's not going to happen to me. A lot of guys are outside. They're in the sun a lot. They think, it's nothing, just a mole. And then the wives finally
I was getting ready to say, your wife there was the one that was aggressive with it, and I mean, that's huge.
Well, I don't know if you can pinpoint it, Doug, but I mean, going through all that and coming out on the other side, and especially the last 10 years or so, but I mean, for anybody that's going to be watching this, and there's going to be a lot of people watching this, what would you say that kind of helped keep you going and keep you in the mental state that you already had going in, which was great to start, but to keep you from losing it?
I don't think it's one thing. It first starts with my parents. Mm-hmm. I mean, they're rocks. They've always been rocks for me. The whole sport thing growing up. Football, baseball, basketball, till you can't stand, right?
Yeah, right.
And they never slowed down with me with that. So I think it was just kind of my upbringing and, everything that, I'd gone through. But, and I had young kids at the time, right? And I just kept saying, I want to see them grow up. I want to, I want to walk Cindy down the aisle one day. All those types of things you don't want to miss.
Yeah.
I didn't want to... So those are the things you just keep in mind.
Sure.
And I'll just say this. I know my mom once, I went to my mom crying one day. I think it was after church. And I said, Mom, why me?
Yeah.
And she said, why not you?
Really?
Why not you?
Because you can take it.
He uses, God uses people in mysterious ways.
Yes.
And that's what I was going to say. It's just stuff like this that happens in life and everything that goes on, religion's a big part of going through something like this, that you go through. I've been through some experiences myself, not as bad as yours, but being religious and trying to, and that's another thing. I think guys are sometimes afraid to talk about religion or talk about God or talk about what.
Sure.
But when you're in that moment, that's what you're doing, and you can't be afraid of that either. To bring up praying or going to church, it's not. No one's going to think you're a Bible. It doesn't really matter. You know what I mean? Like, I think that's a very important thing for people to go through when they're struggling or they've got something going on, because I know that it helped me in my situation, and I'm not afraid to say that it was. No. And I think that's a important thing that you brought up about that, because you are strong, and it showed. And God has mysterious ways of getting to the people that He knows can handle this and do this, and you were one of them.
Yeah, and as a kid, we went to church, and then you get older and, you kind of stray away.
Sure.
And then this hit, and then, I went straight back to church. Mom, went back with Mom and Dad and talked a lot to him, talked a lot to our pastor, super nice people. And
well, there's so many people, Doug, that love and support you and couldn't be happier and proud of you and everything that you've done and are going to continue to do. And it's just incredible. I'm just happy to be a small little part of it. I mean, it's just so cool. And so speaking of that, Doug, you talked about your mom and dad. Talk about your family and your wife and your kids and what they're up to to now get everybody caught up to speed on them.
Yeah. So my wife Carrie, she runs the house.
Yep.
3 kids.
Yep.
You guys know how that works.
Oh, yeah.
So, and just real quick, I think I called her a bulldog before going through all this. No way I get through this without her.
Right.
I agree.
Right.
I mean, if you guys knew, like, you didn't want to be on the other side of that phone call if you told her no. No, you can't get into the James at Ohio State. No, you can't get into Vanderbilt. You know, and she would just fight through and got me to everywhere I needed to be, and took care of the kids and stuff too. So she's a warrior, just all the same.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And then Sydney, she just graduated from NKU.
Nice.
So she's doing really well. I think she's actually going to go back in the spring or in the fall. I think kinesiology she's doing there. So real proud of her. She works two or three jobs. So she's killing it.
Yep.
Spencer just graduated from New Richmond. He's a freshman at UC Claremont.
Yep.
So he's doing really well there. Gets to the gym just about every single day.
Sure he does.
Yeah. And then Sadie, she's a freshman at New Richmond. She plays soccer for New Richmond, so she made the varsity team this year. So she's super excited for that.
That's awesome.
So yeah, kids are doing really well. They're there's always a boyfriend or girlfriend in the house at some point because they're still all 3 at the house. So it's fun.
Well, the one thing we didn't talk about is going through all that, even to this day, with your job. And you've been with the same company, and how all that has transpired. Especially in this day and age with being able to work from home.
Right. Yeah, and I'm glad you brought them up, and I don't even think we talked about that, but yeah. So this March it'll be 25 years at Great American.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
That doesn't happen often.
No,
nowadays.
not anymore.
Yeah, so been very blessed. They're a great company to work for. I mean, the culture at Great American's fantastic.
Yeah. That's not surprising.
Well, there are people. Everyone moves around, especially in the city. It's a small city, but there's so many people that come to Great American and they don't leave.
Yeah.
Because they love the culture. Still family-based type atmosphere, which is really nice. And my manager back when I was going through all this, I mean, God rest his soul, he passed away early, but he it was just like, if you don't need to do anything, don't come in today.
Wow.
And that's when I came back,
Yeah.
But I've been with the company so long, I had a lot of FMLA built up. So a lot of the time I was out doing the trial, it was fully covered, thank goodness.
Yes.
Just because of my tenure there at the company. Yep. So, but yeah, no, they were really, really, really good to me during that time. So, and they still have been today. I love working there.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, but when we really honestly thought of doing this podcast or whatever, this segment, you were the first person it was basically based off of you, man.
Really?
It really was. I mean, we just wanted to.
Can't say it enough.
I mean, we wanted to, because how positive you are and how things are going and how you got through it. I mean, that was, one of the main reasons why, we thought about doing this, and just all the crap that goes on in the world anymore, and just hear the story that you've done and fought through this and made it through, man. It's a really awesome story. And what I'm glad to see is back is you two guys on a bench acting the way that you guys act. That's what I like.
We're rolling.
That's what I like to say. It kind of reminds me of, I don't know if the episode that, if you remember, one of the Rocky movies, and Apollo Creed and Rocky when they're together.
Be cool.
And be cool. And then he does something. That was cool. I thought you said be cool. That was cool. That's you two in a nutshell right there.
It's supposed to be good cop, bad cop, but we're both bad cops.
Yeah. But I've seen him save your butt a lot of times with pulling those pants. I've seen a couple of times. I have seen that a couple of times.
And my wife thanks him for that.
I think I've ripped a boxers or two of his trying to pull him back. Another technical.
Yeah.
Saved you a couple of times from, seeing your head get really red and you almost passed out a couple of times and he had to pull you back. And you guys have mellowed now with age.
Doug talks me off the cliff so much. It's
just last night.
Just last night he did. Yeah. I mean, because I was losing it, and Doug had to give me some Flintstone pills, and then I was okay.
I think we try to slow down on the Red Bulls too, probably, right?
Yeah, well, that's kind of picked up.
Well, I mean, it's long days, man. Yeah. You get up at 5:30, go to work. work.
Yeah.
You know, you're in Louisville at 9 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
You need something to get you.
Yeah.
Something.
No, but it's great, Doug. We, really appreciate you doing this. And I hope everybody out there just, has, whatever they're going through, they fight through it like you did. And, there's always, I know this is going to sound funny too, but the first thing I do in the morning is I thank God for another day.
Yeah.
I mean, I really do. I mean, it just, and I'll be honest, I talk about your friends, family, and all that stuff too. And it's just an important part of my life, with you guys and my family and just, brothers and sisters and all that stuff. And it's just, I think it's important to, show this side of all of us, that we don't have to be the macho guys, and, we're all there for each other.
Stay positive.
Absolutely.
And I know this is what this podcast is all about, but that is the number one thing that got me through, besides, God, family, support, everything. I just woke up every day saying, I'm going to kick its ass today.
Right.
And that was the mindset every day.
Yeah.
And it worked.
Yep.
Yeah. It's awesome that you're doing this. I know we've been trying to work this out for a while and try to wait till after the first of the year, but we really appreciate it. So we're going to go ahead and wrap this up. Our positive energy, as I always said, is positive stories about positive people, on Dingo and the Coach. And, again, just one of the great guys here that you guys that, we really appreciate you doing this, Doug. So thanks a lot.
Thanks for having me. And I'll just say at the end here is if anyone ever wants to talk or get some advice or whatever with what they're going through, hit me up. I'm on Facebook, and
no better role model.
You know who will probably take you up on that is I'll have to get my son with you, because his mom's got stage 4 cancer.
Going through it.
Yeah. And he's struggling. He's struggling with the side of the parent, and so he's struggling.
Yeah.
So maybe I'll have him get a hold of you just to help him get through the mental part of it. I'm sure he'll need that, and you'd be a great person to talk him through it, because he doesn't know what to do.
And I do it often. I mean, work did a story on me. It was May is Melanoma Month, Awareness Month, and they did a big article on me. They interviewed me, all that. Well, they periodically throughout the years will repost that to the company, and I have people reaching out to me through work.
Yeah,
see, that's awesome.
Saying, hey, how did you do it? Hey, my dad's going through it. Hey, my mom's going through it. Hey, I'm going through this. How'd you do it? Blah, blah, blah.
Yep.
And I talk to every single one of them as much as I possibly can, support them, go to their house, whatever it takes to help people get through, because it is a beast, but it can be tamed.
And he's going to need it. So, but I appreciate that. He'll probably do that. So we're going to go ahead and wrap this up here at the USBN studios here. Doug's first time in the studio, so it's been pretty awesome. So
legendary.
For Dan Albers, Steve Ellis, and Doug Ass, you've been listening to Dingo and Coach. We'll catch you guys next week.